We thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed your survey results and the things that you asked for. And so we are definitely going to try, hopefully, to cover as many of these as possible. But I will say we have one big goal for today, and that is really to help you think about bringing a system for how you integrate AI into your ecosystem, your community, your organization, or even just your individual workflow. And the reason we can actually create this kind of system is I'm going to show you the example that literally blew my mind and made me have this moment. You know how people say you have that like feel the AGI moment? This was that moment for me because I think there are so many times where we've heard AI is going to do things for you, yet we still find ourselves doing so much of the work. And so this was really the first example where I was like, oh my God, it is doing things for me. And so I'm going to start off by showing you an example from Claude. Even though today's webinar is focused on Gemini, and the reason for that is Claude is expensive and most people don't have access to it. And ultimately, our goal is to be able to bring this strategy into as many schools as possible. And so while I'm going to show you an example in Claude, we've taken that experience and today we're going to show you how you can adapt about 80% of it inside of
Mhm.
Gemini. And I'm sure other people have ideas for how we can do it even better. So if you do, feel free to share those. Okay, so one of the things that you see on my screen here is when you are using Claude, most people are still only using chat in the browser. You want to make sure if you are going to try Claude that you have downloaded the desktop app because when you do, you're going to see these two other tabs here, co-work and code. So right now we are in Claude Code, which I am sure you have heard tons about. And one of the reasons you are now hearing people say, I can just type one word and Claude does all these things for me is because you can see over here, Claude basically has these words, and each of these words basically is a workflow. So when you type in a word, Claude is like, okay, I need to do one, two, three, four, five, or however many steps it is you've dedicated to it. So as somebody who runs a business, it gets pretty lonely, right? Like I don't have a huge team, we're not a huge company. And there's a lot of times where I'm just like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? And I'm going back and forth in my head. You don't always have someone you can pick up the phone and talk to. Like I have amazing mentors all around me. So many of you in the chat I talk to all the time, but I don't have somebody I can always call. So I actually created an 8-person advisory inside of Claude Code that anytime I'm making a decision, they each sort of give me an opinion from a different lens. One of them is trained in futures thinking. One of them pressure tests things. One of them thinks about budget constraints. Another one is trained on AI specifically and things like that. And so when I come in here and I type a word, you can see over here it says, we're going to go look at design team. You can see over here it says, this is Sabba's inner circle. And so what happens is when I come and I hit design team and I ask a question like this. So if you know me, you also know that I hate the traffic lights that people use for AI policy. And one of the days
Me
I
too.
was like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have blind spots that I need to think twice about before making these comments. So I came in, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the design team. And I asked them, how should a high school approach student AI use, given that traffic light systems, green, yellow, red, are pretty much becoming common, but that we know student agency is also something we need to prioritize? Like, check me here. What are my blind spots? What am I doing? So, anyways, this is what Claude ends up creating for me literally in one prompt. Okay. It comes in here and it says like, okay, here's how we all voted. Okay. This is your decision that you're making. And then over here, it gives me options. If you adopt the traffic light in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, this is what's going to happen. And I can scroll through these. This is an interactive experience where I can scroll through and look at the different decisions and what will happen based on what I adopt. It even comes up with a learning framework for me. And it's like, if you adopt this learning framework that I've come up with, this is what things will look like. Obviously, the premise is if you adopt the traffic lights, easy in the beginning, hard later. If you do, the harder work of adopting a framework, hard in the beginning, easy later. I can see all the different stakeholders that might be affected. How is a teacher going to approach this? What might my budget look like if I want to train for this? And then the best part is I can actually go and look at their individual opinions and why they each voted the way they did to tell me why this was their recommendation. I can go in there and I can even ask them questions. It's like an LLM. And then it even has this quiz for me is how ready am I to take certain steps? And it has this checklist for what I can do. So The fact that Claude is able to now, and it's not just Claude, it's a couple other AI tools can do this too, but Claude is really doing it the best. The fact that we can go in now with just a short amount of words that are trained extensively because we have a system in place for how we work, how we make decisions, and how we do things is really the big breakthrough we've seen in the first 3 months of 2026 and why you keep hearing everyone talk about Claude Code. Now, I showed you that example to show you why and what's possible. And this is really just scratching the surface. But what we want to do today is really look at how we do this inside Gemini. Now, one of the other things you may have seen a lot of people share is an article that was called Something Big is Happening, which is why there's a lot of talk these days as well about do people still need to know how to code and this and that. And this is just like one little excerpt from that article, because this idea, again, that your AI tools are no longer just sort of like generating things for you, but they're actually doing things for you, is what is moving us more and more and more into that sort of agentic AI space. So, the generative AI, I think, is where everybody is relatively comfortable, but really thinking about, well, how do you now work with agents requires you to have a very different system in place than you did perhaps with working with those generative AI tools. What you could maybe get away with working with generative AI and doing it that way, you're not going to be able to get away with the same stuff when doing the agentic work. And this is what we want to be able to bridge that gap in today. So you can kind of see over here, he's like, yeah, it could always write code, it could always do this. But the thing that was unthinkable a year ago is that once it builds it, it can open it, it can click through buttons, it can test things literally the same way a person would if they were testing something. And only once it's really satisfied with its work will it come back and say it's done. Andre Karpathy, who's probably like the most famous person that like everybody is following right now. He's the person who worked on self-driving for Tesla. He's one of the co-founders of OpenAI. Like this is somebody who has been doing this for a long time. When Claude Code came out, he was like, this is like a magnitude 9 earthquake. He said prior to in November of 2025, I was doing 80% of the coding and sort of the work. AI was doing 20. Just 30 days later in December of 2025, AI was doing 80% of the coding and the work, and I was really only doing 20%.
That's crazy.
If a person who is so, so, so deeply immersed in this is telling you, oh my God, like even I'm having a hard time keeping up, and even this is moving, it feels crazy to me, like a magnitude 9 earthquake, you are not alone if you have this feeling as well, because I think now if you don't have this feeling, you're not really pushing the boundaries enough. This is another image that went really viral at the start of this year. It's hard to believe how much has happened just at the start of this year. What I just showed you are the people over here in red. This is what the people over here in red are doing. They are using coding as part of their experience. And that is how small a fraction of the world is doing this, which is why this webinar was so, so, so important to Katie and I to do. Because if we do not start bringing this conversation into education and we stay stuck in this generative phase, the whole world is moving forward and you leave obviously our students and everybody within our school communities behind. And it sounds to me like many of you are thinking and feeling the exact same thing, because a lot of you actually used very specific language of how you were stuck in phase 2, which if you're not familiar with, we'll talk about in a moment. A lot of you asked for something you can use Monday. We have custom tools, like little gems that we've created to help you launch this work that we're going to share with you today during the webinar. A lot of you are interested in like, how do I scale the work that I'm doing? We've been using a lot of tools and whatnot. So the point is, we hear you, we see you, and we're really excited to do this work today. So to start us off with, this is kind of your litmus test for where your people are at in your organization that you want to get a pulse on. How many times are people hitting this new chat button? Because if you are somebody who is opening up Gemini, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever you're using, and every single time you open the tool, it's new chat, new chat, new chat, you're in phase 1 and we need to start building you a system. And I think even if you are here, it is not a bad thing. It just means we need to organize things up a little bit and get you into a system to where you are going to a custom tool and you are basically like, do this for me with sort of that one line command, the same way you saw in Claude. I have this question, do this for me. But behind the scenes, even though it looks like it's just generating something, it's generating something very, very, very specific according to how we want things done, how we, in this case with a blog, want things written, and all the things that the way we would do them is what we want to be at. And the difference between people who keep hitting new chat and people that have this system is why we have this word work slop. And I feel like last year this word was used everywhere. I think Harvard Business Review did a really popular article on this that went viral. But it's so important to know that the problem is not the technology. At this point, with where AI is at, if you hear somebody say something like, um, and you hear somebody say something like, it's just not that good, or I can't get it to do this, or I'm better than this still, and whatnot, chances are that person doesn't have a system. Mike, I see your hand raised. If you want to drop your thing in the chat, definitely let me know and put it in there. And we'll do a little bit of Q&A at the end. So again, another really big problem that we have with work slop and people who are using it this way and not doing it this way is you're hearing all these things about how no one's seeing results with their AI. Oh, we invested in tools, we did this and we did that, but there's no change. And the reason you don't have a change is because the tools alone are not enough to get you to transformation. You have to be able to build that system.
Yeah. So thinking about all of those things, and thank you, Saba, for such a great opening. Where are you right now? We would actually love for you to drop that into the chat. Put a number one if you're exploring this on your own. Maybe you're just on an island and your district is not doing anything where you work, nothing is happening, and you're looking at it on your own. Maybe you're ready to bring in your team. That would be number two. And for number three, you're ready to dive in with students. So go ahead and drop into the chat where you are. Some of you are putting a five. Thank you. I know that there are those of us there that really want to jump even further ahead. And you are in the right place for some of the building blocks for that as well. I'm seeing lots of twos, ones and twos, a couple of threes, and a sadly still a one, and that's okay. Inside the district where I work, I think I have people at all three phases, and really all three answers are the right answer.
Awesome. And I think because we are seeing a lot of three, I'll just preface this right now and say that while today we're not talking a lot about use with students, one of the reasons this webinar is so important, I actually forgot to say this earlier, is I actually noticed a lot of you in here are in leadership roles. And even though a lot of what we're going to talk about today is centered around teachers, until we do not get our teachers a system that works to where they finally stop seeing AI as cheating and really realize how much cognitive work goes into building these systems and working with these tools, it's going to be impossible to touch the students. And so the teachers really are such an important piece of this equation. And it really is the leadership that needs to be able to create that system and think differently about PD, think differently about all these elements so that we can, like many of you in the chat are saying, really be able to reach the students. So I feel like most of you know who I am, but like one of the things I'll just share is that I've been doing so much of this research prior to ChatGPT, and that's where a lot of this comes from. I don't use the word design thinking in here, but if you know me, everything we share today is really centered around this idea that cultures of innovation begin with a culture of empathy. We have a lot of people that like to start with tools. Back in 2012, when I first started my journey with iPads, I also started with tools. It was like, oh my God, there's this app, there's this app, there's this app. But very quickly you realize only a few people get excited and it doesn't scale because you don't have a system. So this is something that has always been true for any technology integration. So what you're going to hear a lot of today is let's lean into people's problems, let's lean into what we wish we could do, and let's build that system from there.
Yeah, and hi everyone. I'm Katie Page. I know Sabba through the Apple Distinguished Educator Program, and like Sabba, my journey, began way back in the early 2000s. I think in 2010 and 2011 in our district, we had our first like tablet initiative. All of our little pilots going on around the district, and I was part of that. And since then, I've really tried to, like Sabba, pull in tool, and then you realize very quickly that you need to figure out what it is your goal. What are you trying to teach? What do you want kids to learn? And then go from there. And that's even more true now in this age of AI. And so, just to do a little level setting, if you can hit play on this one, Saba, we're going to be using Gemini today. You can go to gemini.google.com. And like we were talking about, most people just keep hitting new chat, and then they go in and prompt. You can create an image, you can have it help you learn. You want to make sure you're always on the latest or your pro version. So make sure that you toggle that down. We're also going to take a look at some gems today. We're not going to really show you the behind the scenes of how to build them, but we're going to show you how they work. You can take a look at that inside of Gemini as well.
Amazing. Okay, so a lot of you in your opening mentioned that we're in phase two. So if you've ever seen me present ever, you know that this is one of my all-time favorite graphics because I feel like in one graphic, it tells us exactly where it is that we are and exactly where it is that we're going. So with AI, this comes from Microsoft and it came out in 2025. And basically what they said is that with AI, we're going to have three phases to our journey. Phase number one is kind of where everybody is, right? They're using AI like an assistant. People call it thought partner, collaborator, whatever you want to call it. But in this one, you are very much still new chat, new chat, new chat. One of the things that's really important is helping everybody begin to make this transition to I'm using AI like an assistant that's helping me to I am the leader of an AI team, which means I have a team member who helps me draft emails. I have a team member who helps me with my social media posts. You know, if I have a team member who helps me with writing parent communication, I have a team member that helps me with writing a newsletter, like whatever task it is that you do on a regular basis, if you are doing something more than 3 or 4 times regularly in a week, you should have a dedicated team member for that because otherwise you're constantly prompting from scratch. And again, this is where a lot of the problems come with the quality of what it is, but also not being able to up level. So one of the things you want to be able to identify is where do you feel most people in your organization are? Now, it's also important to remember that you can do this work individually too. You do not need your district to be the one to start this for you. Obviously, that is everybody's dream, but whether you are a department chair, if you are a principal, if you are a teacher, a counselor, it doesn't matter who you are. Every single person can apply everything we're doing today, build it, and then scale it out, scale it in, however you want to do it. So
Mhm.
this too is really where we're going to focus on the most because if you ever heard me last year, you always heard me say, I don't think we have to worry about three. I don't think it's going to be here till like 2027, 2028. Yet here we are in the first 3 months
Just
of
kidding.
2026. And there are literally people that you could go online and see are doing number three. One of the things that I think is literally an injustice is Claude, which is where primarily this is happening, is just so expensive. You really have to be paying $100 a month. So there's a $20 a month plan, but I think you really have to be paying $100 a month if you're really going to experience this in its full capacity. And if you don't, you'll just hit a bunch of limits. It will constantly tell you usage up, usage up, usage up. So our really big focus for today is how do you get a system where everybody is out of phase one, but everybody is in phase two? Because you will never be able to make a jump from phase one to phase three. What do I mean by that? If you're a Magic School user who wants to try to use Claude Code, forget about it. You're going to have an insanely hard time because so many of the steps you needed to be able to get there are just not part of your repertoire. They're not part of your skill set. However, if you are somebody who can make a strong transition from one to two, you will make a three is not easy. Even for somebody like me, like three is not easy at all. There's just so much that goes into thinking through your workflows, but you will be 70% there to be able to at least be able to even
Mhm.
attempt three. So again, our focus for today is making that transition, how to help others make the transition from one to two, and then show you what two to three actually looks like. So I'm going to start with phase one. And I actually just saw this the other day. It came up on my Instagram feed where there was a teacher who was like, anyone else find it interesting that admin tell teachers not to use TPT, but are pushing AI? And I was just like, wait, what? Like, how are you comparing these? So if you don't know TPT, it's Teachers Pay Teachers, where teachers post a bunch of their curriculum materials, resources. Other teachers can go in and buy them and use them in their classrooms. They're basically ready-made resources. And this to me is one of the biggest reasons why I've always said tools like Magic School, School AI, Brisk are problematic. It's not because the tool is bad. The tool can be helpful. There's a lot of scenarios where it's very helpful, but it creates a very, very, very false understanding of what AI is. And one of the things that you'll realize very quickly that I just screenshotted one comment here. If you go on this post, there are hundreds of teachers who are all saying the same things. My district doesn't let me use TPT, but they want me to use AI. And one of the first questions has to be define AI. Because if your version of AI is I'm hitting a few buttons like I am a vending machine, then I can absolutely see why you would make that comparison to TPT. However, if you're somebody who's using it the way Katie's going to show you Gemini or the way I just showed you Claude Code, there's no way you could draw a comparison between the two. So the reason I tell you that is even even for people in phase one, they have a flawed understanding of AI. And so this is one of the most important things to do, and which is why we're sharing Gemini, because if you are a Google Workspace school, you have access to Gemini for free. If you're a Microsoft school, you have access to Copilot. So there are tools that you have access to that can help your teachers move out of this phase. And even if they are still going to use these tools like Magic School, at least show them what's possible. And one of the ways you can help them make this transition, no matter what tool they're using, is to change the type of question people are asking with AI. This goes back to that thing that we cannot start with tools. So right now, a lot of people are asking, how do I use AI? Tell me what to do. I just made this. Now what can I do? Now what can I do? And it's just the wrong place to start. What we do want to get more people talking about is what type of learning do we want to create? And is there a role for AI? It might be that it's pen and paper. It might be that there's no AI. It might be that yes, there's AI. But when we start with what kind of learning experience are we trying to create, you have a very, very different conversation and people's guards go down. When you start with the AI conversation, guards go up, fear goes up, everything goes up. And when you start with learning, everything begins to come down. So, how do we help people begin to create this system? Number one, there are three elements that sort of go into this. Baseline is knowledge. You really want to think about it this way. If you don't have a system and your people are just going into these tools and using AI, it's basically like you are always with a substitute teacher. They don't know your district vision, mission, values. They don't know if you have a learner profile or not. They don't know anything about you. They don't know the context of your students. Like, this is basically a freelancer, like a substitute who just comes in for a day, but that has officially taken over your class because they're the ones that are sort of working with your teacher to generate this information. So these are the three layers we're going to go through today to talk about why this system works. So at the foundation, at the outer level, you need a knowledge layer of intelligence. We need to basically create a way to be able to give access to everybody to the same knowledge so that people are not prompting from scratch. I'm going to talk about skills a little bit later, and then we'll talk about people and how eventually, once people start using the tools, they contribute back to this knowledge, what's working well, what's not working well, and the system just keeps now self-improving alongside them. So when we talk about knowledge, what is it that we want every single person to be able to have access to? We want every single person, no matter what they are prompting, to always be able to include your mission, vision, values, your curriculum standards for that grade level, strategic plan priorities, how voice and tone, what words do we use, what words do we not use, community and context, and student support. These are just some ideas, but I would say these are kind of the main ones that you want to have, because if you do not have this layer, like I said, it's like you're working with a substitute or it's like you're working with a freelancer. So a lot of you were like, what can I do tomorrow? Give me something to use immediately. This would be where you would want to start. We call this an onboarding doc. And basically, what it is, it's an about me. So instead of just going in and saying, make me a lesson plan about this, or even if you are adding a little bit of context, being able to have a document that you can attach to a gem or even just to a regular chat, telling the AI tool who you are, what you do, how you communicate, what your strengths are, who your students are, and all that stuff allows your AI tool to personalize the information on a completely different level. You cannot prompt this every single time. You need to have a doc that has this information saved. Otherwise, like I said, it's pretty much like working with a freelancer. And the nice thing is once people have this document, you could literally make this a 30-minute session as part of your faculty meeting. You could make it a 30-minute section as part of a PD so that people are able to do this during the time that they have available. But basically, once they have this one file, they can use it everywhere. If you're going to write a social media post with AI, upload this in so that it's constantly trained to think like you, talk like you, and all of that type of stuff. And you are absolutely right, Mike, you can. And we actually made one for you.
I
So the
just
gem,
dropped it in the chat, everyone. So if you
thank
take a
you.
look at the chat, I said, here's the About Me gem.
Can you send it to everyone? I think it's like to host and panelists. Go ahead and hit everyone and then send it out there.
Thank you.
Um, so once you have this gem, basically what it's going to do is this gem is going to interview you. Takes about 15 to 20 minutes. I definitely recommend using voice instead of typing. Go out for a walk. It's going to ask you a couple of questions. And at the end, when it's done, it's going to create what is called an About Me doc. Now, one of the things you might notice here is that this is not a PDF. This is going to be a .md file, which is basically the same thing as a docx, a .pdf, or whatever. However, as humans, we like to share Google Docs and we like to share PDFs. your AI tools like .md files. And .md files are basically like really ugly text files, like that look like a typewriter has just written a bunch of stuff. There's no formatting, there's no images, like none of the fancy stuff. But your Google, any Google Doc that you have can be saved as a .md. So when you go to download, we usually are so quick to hit like PDF, or at least I hit PDF all the time. You'll notice in that drop down is now a .md. And you want to be creating as many types of documents or just taking existing PDFs and all those kinds of things and dropping them into Gemini or Claude or whatever and saying, make this in .md file. But the very first one you're going to want to do is that about me. And if that's all somebody did, they just created about me.md file and they started attaching that to their gems, to any conversations they were having, you would automatically notice a 60% quality increase
At
in
least.
your AI output. So that's your number one kind of goal for what to do.
For sure. And so I'm gonna dive in and kind of just give you a little world. Let's say you're working with just one teacher with one assignment, and you've done this PD. They have this about me doc, but they're like, okay, great. Now what? What do I do? I need to fix my skydiver assignment. I've been a physics teacher most of my life, and well, really all of my adult life. And one assignment that I thought was really pretty good was this skydiver assignment, but really it's just a worksheet. And so kids would be getting the same answers. They're working together. There's no autonomy. It's fairly boring, frankly. And then fast forward to any time after 2022, and kids just went ahead and dumped it into AI, and boom, literally in 10 seconds, you can show the next slide, Sabba, and play that video real quick. I tried it yesterday. This is a little screen grab on the left of what the assignment looks like. Sorry for the PTSD if you are not a fan of physics. But I dumped it into Gemini, and there you go. I said, solve this for me. It literally, in fact, I think that was less than 10 seconds. It did the entire worksheet. So I started when all of this was new and starting to pop up in class. And when I started my role in my district where I roll out I started to think, how am I going to help teachers do this in their curriculum? Like this is bad. Kids can just throw everything into AI. What are we supposed to do? And so it was actually one of the very first times I brainstormed with AI and said, what can I do to help run a session for staff? And finally, after time and lots of iterations, I have landed on this assignment audit and these 5 questions that really anybody can take anything they're going to do on Monday and ask themselves these 5 questions. You don't even need AI, just get a pen and paper. And so I can tell you real quick for that skydive assignment, can AI easily complete it? Yeah, you just saw it. It took 10 seconds. Do most students get the same work? Yeah, they're solving math problems. I'm just looking to see. Is it recall low level? A little bit. Does it lack meaningful voice? 100%. There's really no creativity. So can it be presented? Yes, it definitely could have more engaging real world format. So I started to think through all of my assignments in my space science and my physics doing this. And it's kind of, a pain really to be doing this on pen and paper. So I created a gem, which Sabba's going to show you on the next slide. And if you could hit play. And actually, we have this gem available for you today as well. And when you get this gem, you're going to type in the word start, and it's going to ask you the 5 questions one by one. Or if you've already gone through all 5 questions on your own, just like with pen or paper, you'll tell it which path you took. So did you already complete it on your own? That's option A. Do you want me to walk you through it? Meaning the gem will walk you through it. That's option B. I had already done this on my own. So I told it, look, I got a 4 out of 5. And so then it jumps in based on all of the guardrails and information that I put on the back end. And it said, yep, that's a clear signal. We need to redesign this assignment. So I attached the assignment, and then it's going to dive in. It's going to read the assignment. Again, because of the back end things that I have loaded, it's going to go ahead and tell me, yeah, this is very vulnerable. Kids can put this in and do this immediately. It looks like we have low-level verbs. There's no lack of choice, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's going to continue to prompt me and ask me, like, what are the next steps? How can we make this better? I don't want to throw it out. I want kids to know this information about someone who's skydiving because we're in our dynamics unit and I want them to understand about gravity. And then it was asking me, like, do you want me to suggest some other ways, you know, that we can do this? And I said, yep. I told it what grade level. Um, it's running a little slower than I'm talking. And so, anyways, it keeps moving through. And I tell it the grade level. I tell it how much time I have. And then it starts to really brainstorm with me and give me some suggestions. And the things that it came up with were fantastic. All kinds of different things, gave a bunch of different roles. And you could certainly keep brainstorming with the AI back and forth. But I landed on one at the end that was called the extreme jump. And so you can switch to the next slide there, Sabba. And you can continue to iterate back and forth. But this extreme jump was much better. And what it was is I landed on, you are a lead physics consultant for billionaire client. That is way better than, hey kids, here's this worksheet, do a bunch of physics and math. And so their job is to run the numbers and tell them if their mission is a go or no go. And so then they have some autonomy. They get to choose, what environment it is, and et cetera, et cetera. And in the end, I would probably have kids do something, because we're an iPad district. We used to use clips, but I would probably have them use iMovie or whatever way they want to film it, and turn in some sort of a dynamic project at the end. So the redesign kept it AI proof. It gave kids agency, definitely more fun. And now for the assignment audit, I had a 0 out of 5. They were all of it was 0. So we're safe. They're not going to be able to just plug this in to AI. Or if they do, they can brainstorm with AI about how they can, move forward with this assignment and actually use AI the way it should be used. So have fun using that with yourself or your staff. Feel free to share that wide. And attached with that About Me doc at the same time, you're really already going to be ahead. I don't know what dot it is, Sabba, but it's somewhere in there.
That's
You're ahead of
so
most.
funny. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so we just dropped Katie's audit gem into the chat. And just like she said, if you were to give it to your teachers and to have them upload an assignment, upload an About Me, you will automatically see literally an 80% increase in the quality of not just the output, but also people's experience. Because it's not just generating something for you on a first tap like a vending machine, right? Like they're going to have to put some effort into that About Me. They're going to have to put some effort into like, yeah, like what assignment are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And that interactive conversation it's having back and forth with you is really where when their own experience with AI begins to shift in that way, they then begin to say, oh, okay. And then it helps them understand what it is that students also need. And again, the reason for this webinar is like we've just seen people experience this over the past year in all the workshops and things like that that we do. And it just does not fail like at all. When you change people's experience of how they use AI, they automatically begin to change their own feelings towards what students need and how they're going to think differently about it. So if you think about that About Me, okay, that's your knowledge layer right there. If you think about the audit gem that Katie just gave you, that is what we call like a quote unquote skill. And the reason we use the word skills is because that's what Claude calls it. Inside of Claude, like whereas here inside of Gemini, the one thing that we have to DIY a little bit is we kind of have to like put our own skills together. We have to create the gems, we have to do these things. With Claude, what's really interesting is it automatically knows, oh, you're working on an assessment, or you're trying to like, assess your students on something. I'm going to pull in the audit skill and I'm going to make sure that I apply this. So what we're having to sort of manually sort of do a little bit in Gemini, Claude does by itself. And so we've just taken how Claude is doing it and basically brought it over into Gemini with a little bit of extra work that we have to do, but it's not that much. So just to kind of, again, just reiterate, like your knowledge is, and at this level, remember, we're very basic. We're just doing it About Me. Ideally, you do want to build .md files for your district's vision and all the other areas we shared. You want to like start creating as many possible skills as you can. Every single time, everything we do is a skill. The way we communicate, the way we collaborate, the way we write certain things. Like every single thing we do is a skill. The more, and you don't even have to do this yourself. You literally can go to Claude and be like, oh, we just wrote this amazing blog post together. Turn this into a skill. Or even Gemini, turn this into a skill. How can you remember how we did this process? Let's document this workflow. And you want to start saving those as much as you can so that you can distribute out and share this. If Katie was to go and try to teach this to every single person and try to have them all build their own, it's time consuming. But if Katie bills it for her entire district, guess what? You automatically now have everybody applying and integrating what it is that she's sharing with them. And the benefit to that is people get excited, people get motivated, and then people come back and tell you, well, actually, can it do this? Can it do that? I want it to have this. I want it to do that. And now they've got ideas for things that they want to be able to build. So this is just again, because I know the words are kind of weird. I feel like with Claude, I've learned so many words. It just makes me so frustrated that coding was not a language alongside Spanish and French because it's literally a language. But I think an important word or like, I guess, acronym or whatever abbreviation to know is .md because you're going to see this a lot. And basically all .md means is that is the language or that is the file type that your AI agents prefer instead of a PDF or all these other types of things. And once you have your collection, you can, your AI team can basically call on those in that way. Olga's asking, why is that? And that is a fantastic question. And I do not know why. I want to say the reason is it's plain text. A markdown file is just a plain text file. So it's easier for it to read. But I
I
want to
think
show
you're
you,
right. When you open it, it's
yeah,
just, it
it's
looks
horrible. It's
100% like,
horrible.
it's
It's
awful. I
not
was
pretty
like,
at
what
all.
is this?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
I do want to show you what that looks like on the black back end because
Oh,
earlier
Mike
I
says
showed
it's
you.
small. It's a small file.
Ah, okay, okay, cool. Good to know. Less tokens.
That's good to know.
Good to
Thanks, Mike.
know. Okay, so earlier we showed you the blog gem, right? It was like type in a prompt, write a blog on this, and it was outputting something. But behind the scenes, inside of the gem, are these instructions. And the instructions then basically become read this MD file first, read this one second, read this one third, read this one fourth. So in this case, the first file I need you to read is how I like my blogs created, right? I have a very specific format, I have a very specific flow, how I like to structure them, how I like my headings. And then you need to read my voice because when you go in and write it, you need to write it like me. You need to then read my SEO skill to make sure that the blog is fully SEO'd. And then I'll tell you one that I really like that I use daily. It's called Finalize. And basically, what I was finding was even though I was training my AI team, they were lazy. Like your AI tools are lazy a little bit. And so I have this one here called Finalize, which is like before you give me the final version, read it through again the way I would, because I don't want to sit here and have to give corrections that I've already told you.
This is
And
something I learned from Sabba, and it has completely changed the output in what I do. You
yeah, and
have to have a finalize.
one of the things that I love is that it will actually grade itself. So it won't just secretly go and change things. It will tell me, okay, I'm giving myself a B
Mhm.
minus. I failed here, 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 and
Yes.
here's how I'm going to correct it. Like it's wild. So this is what it looks like on the back end once you create these files. But what's really amazing is if I had a team and I wanted other people to write blogs for me, I could literally give them these things, these skills. Or if I wanted all of us to start writing blogs, I could share these skills with people. Like if I wanted to share all of these skills with you guys here on the chat, I could. And the only skill you would have to change is the voice skill. That's the about me. And so you can create skills around assessment, around pedagogies, around strategy, around writing a newsletter. Like you can create skills for anything and share them across your organization. And the only thing everybody has to do to personalize that skill is add in their about me. And it will take the strategy and then it will take the about me and personalize the output to that specific person and what it is that they are doing. And I'll give you a really, really good example of this. It would be the visible thinking routines. I am obsessed with visible thinking routines. I have been for like the last 15 years. And basically, what they are is they're the think, pair, share, see, think, wonder, all of those different types of things. And one of the things that recently came out was a report by Nord Anglia. And they basically, Nord Anglia is a huge international education organization. They have 27 schools across 12 countries. And they basically wanted to study metacognition, which is thinking about your thinking, like how do you make your thinking visible? and the report is fantastic. It's like 5 pages. I should have said earlier, we're gonna send you a recording. We're gonna send you the slides, and we're also gonna send you links to everything that we mentioned. And Mike, thank you so much. He actually dropped the visible thinking routines into the chat, which is fantastic because if you click that website, you will actually see that there are so many different routines. But if you were to go to your AI tool right now and just say, give me a visible thinking routine, you know what it's going to pull? See, think, wonder, think, pair, share, because those are the most widely used ones on the internet. However, if you go to the website Mike just dropped, you'll notice there's hundreds more that are not as used as often. But what Nord Anglia found was that when people use these on a regular basis, all those skills people are worried about, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, blah, 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 all skyrocketed. But not only that, this is the one that I thought was more important. Students started to feel more confident in what they knew in knowledge, also how they were learning, and being more independent in their thinking. Now, if you send somebody, I love that Mike dropped that in, like if you send somebody to the Visible Thinking Routine website, you know what happens? They're going to spend so much time browsing it. Which one should I use? Is this one right? Is that one right? Blah, blah, blah. So what do we do instead? We create a skill where the AI is trained on the visible thinking routines. Now, you might be like, well, how do I train it on the visible thinking routines? You use Gemini's deep research. Okay. You do not have to build these skills alone. You can do this for PBL. You could do this for design thinking. You can do this for what is that tier one instruction? You can use this for anything. But what you do is we call this giving your AI team an edge, right? It's not always how do you do something. We see a lot of people making gems this way. I do this, be this fifth grade lesson planner, blah, blah, blah. You don't want your AI team to just be you. You want it to be the things you wish you could be. So if I wished every single teacher in my district used visible thinking routines on a daily basis, there's probably no way I'd be able to achieve that if I was a principal. However, if I was to go into Gemini and I was to run a deep research report and say, I want you to run a research report on the visible thinking routines and how we can integrate more student agency, you can use authors, right? If you have them, you can use frameworks. You can even specify by grade level. It doesn't really matter, but I can basically create a skill that is trained on all of the visible thinking routines, add it into a gem so that when a teacher comes and basically uses this and adds their about me, all they have to do is hit plan, right? That's the one word. It asks them 2 questions. What topic do you want to do? How much time do you have? And just like that, it's going to start giving them recommendations. They could upload their lesson plan and be like, okay, how do I integrate that in here without going over time? And they can keep going and going and going from there. You will see 10x the results if you start distributing out these types of tools to people and teaching them how to actually integrate and apply that to change instruction more than you will as if you try to sort of teach them like how to do a deep research report and how to do all of these different things. They can build the slide decks like literally within like 30 minutes, they can go from 0 to 100 and have all the assets it is that they need. I am watching all the questions come in and we will
Yeah,
get to all of
so
them.
many.
All right, so what I want you to be thinking about, we showed you the visible thinking routine one, Katie showed you the audit one, we showed you the blog one. If you could like hire 2 people tomorrow, because this is how you want to think about it, if I could hire 2 people to help my staff with something, who would they be? Would I hire somebody who could help them with blogs? Would I hire somebody to help them with assessment? Would I hire somebody to make them, visible, help them with visible thinking or design thinking? I'm not going to go through all of these here, but just know that when we share the deck with you, we have like a bunch of different examples for things that you could pull from. But you want to be thinking about, oh my God, I wish everyone in my district did X. Now, it can't be recess duty or something like a human could do. It has to be some type of knowledge work that you're
Chaperone
doing at
homecoming.
a
Yeah.
computer. But once you have that, Katie has so many examples, but she's going to share an example of what this looks like when you have this system up and running.
Yeah. Yeah, just not enough hours in the day for us to share all of the things. But I just was thinking about similar sessions that I've run in my district, very similar to what we have here. This is, of course, the top 1% when we're dealing with Sabba. But I did a very similar thing where I was showing staff how they can connect their gem to a notebook LM. We also have Canva in our district, which is free for educators, and how they could combine all those things together. And I had this AP Spanish teacher, and she just dove in. She did all the things, right? So she built gems for her students where she attached the AP rubric. She shared that out to them. They can be shared just like a Google Doc, and then kids can upload their own learning to get formative feedback immediately straight from College Board standards. She built entire notebook LMs that had the YouTube videos. She showed the textbook materials, her class notes, again, the rubrics, shared that out to kids. But the best part was that kids started building their own. They built their own notebook LMs, they built their own gems, and then they were able to prompt some of those things and take those prompts over into Canva AI to produce infographics very similar to the one you're looking at here. Is basically what I did. I had a gem that's connected to a notebook. I asked it to give me a prompt for Canva that I could share tonight in this webinar. I dumped it in to Canva AI. So teachers and students really, when you give them um, more than just the tools, but the understanding of how all of these things can work together within their little world of their classroom, they can really take it to the next level quicker than you could ever show them how. And they give it to kids, and kids are doing amazing things with these tools as well in our high school district.
Sorry, just adding into chat. A lot of people are asking about the slides and basically the way these slides were made. Like
Uh-huh.
any of these ones that you're seeing here are literally the process that I am sharing with you right now. Basically, again, same thing. And I will say the key to everything is a deep research report because it is I don't think it's impossible, but it's extremely time consuming to go in and curate how the top 1% of people do anything. So I basically went and I asked Gemini because I do think Gemini's deep research is better. And I basically asked Gemini run a deep research report on how the top 1% of people create sketch notes. And it went and it did it. It talked about typography. It talked about I wouldn't even know honestly what all the words were that it used, but it basically curated the most insane research for me. I went to Claude. I told it, hey, use this research, make me a scale on sketchnoting, and it did. So now anytime I need to make a slide, I go into Claude and I'm like, hey, make me a, sketch note prompt for this topic. Like I want to create a slide. Basically here, I'd be like, I want to create a slide that says all these things and it will go in, it will create that for me. And then I actually come over to Gemini because Gemini, so this is where like again, like your knowing your tools is going to help you. You could do all of this inside of Gemini as well. Like Gemini could also make the prompt for you, but Gemini's
Mhm.
image creation is much,
Uh-huh.
much, much better. So because Claude, I think is better at just like the whole skill process and whatnot, I do it there, but I could also do it in Gemini. And then you just come to Gemini, put the prompt in, and you just make sure create images on, which again, if you are a school that has Google Workspace, this is free for you to do, right? Like people have to pay for these tools, but Gemini, like Google, Notebook LM, these are all completely free for you to be able to use. And so we've talked a lot about gems and being and sort of like, the knowledge and the skills and whatnot. When we think about this knowledge, Katie's going to share, she does a lot with Notebook LM. And so she's going to share with us a little bit how Notebook LM can also be like this like second brain or this like space where you can create that knowledge base for people.
Yeah, you can hit play on that. It's a screen grab. It's a little fast and furious for those of you who have never used Notebook LM. You can just go to just Google it. It's a Google product. Um, and you can create a new notebook. You can upload files. It'll pull directly from Drive, which is amazing because we're a Google Workspace district. You can search the web and it will find resources for you. And it loads all the resources on the left side there. You can pick which ones are on or off. You can prompt it, like I said, list, the three main goals of this committee. This is my innovation and change committee that I run. But then there's more. It'll create a podcast or a video for you. Infographics are pretty great. It'll do data tables or quizzes. Kids are starting to create these for themselves, and staff are using this to share with kids. Here's an image it created for me, an infographic that has our mission statement for our district, and then kind of the mission of our innovation and change committee, which is to back up to SAMR because so many staff missed the train on the first time around. And so it's a really, really powerful tool. We don't have a whole lot of time to dive into it today, but like here's a video that it created. It just busted out like a slide deck video. It has audio too, which you can't hear right here, but it talks through the resource that I had it make a video for. But you can connect these to gems, which is amazing because as of today, you can load about 300 sources to Notebook LM. Earlier this school year, you could only add 50. And now you can add 300. And I'm hearing in the future that Notebook LM and Gemini are going to be connected even in a better way. Who knows? That could be happening overnight. It also has an interactive feature that I'm showing you here with the podcast where it will actually talk with you back and forth. And students love this feature. Staff have been creating podcasts for them. You can actually create podcasts in another language for students, and they can interact with it and talk to it back and forth. It's pretty lifelike and really amazing from someone who started with literal chalkboards and chalk, and I'm not that old. This to me is just, it's incredible what kids can do and how they can really interact with like the materials that you give them. It's really, really a powerful tool. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
Katie, we have a question from Joelle.
Yeah.
She's asking, what is a talking point? Because you're doing sessions, I know, every single day. What is a talking point? Hold on a second. I'll say, what is a talking point for getting staff to support the use of Notebook LM?
Usually I start by showing them what it can do for them, like within their PLC, and have them load like just for one particular unit. Like when I'm teaching physics, kids have a worksheet, they have their textbook, I have YouTube videos, I've got, ABCD. You can put all of these things into Notebook LM, including like our calendar, the curriculum, whatever it is. And then you can ask it things like, what percentage of this unit did we spend on kinematics when we should have only been doing a little bit? Somehow we spent way too much time. And so we can shrink that piece. So it'll synthesize information just for you individually. And I feel like once staff see the power of that, they immediately start to think about how they could do that for kids. And so sessions that I run, I just tell staff that it's an easier way for kids to synthesize that information because stuff is all over the place. Like we use Schoology in our district. They got to go in, they got to click 50 things to find the YouTube video, all the different resources that are in there, plus their notes that they took. You can actually share directly to Notebook LM from Notability on your iPad. You can share it over and it'll add it as a note. And I think once staff start to see how that is just a powerful tool for kids for their learning, it just naturally they want to start creating them for kids. But a singular talking point, for me, it would just be how it can synthesize that information. It's just all in one spot.
Love it. A lot of you are asking you about gems and how to organize that about me. So I'm going to share two things that we use as like a best practice. Number one, we always give somebody a trigger word. So when we're doing the instructions of the gem, we tell it, do not start anything until somebody has put in the trigger word. And the reason I like a trigger word is it just ensures the gem is going to get off to a smooth start. Because if it can get off to a smooth start, chances are we're going to be good. We don't want somebody who's using it to think they're like 10 steps ahead and they don't need the beginning. We want everyone starting at the same entry point. So I'll always have a trigger word. And then second, you'll notice over here that even when you're inside your gem, you still have access to the plus to be able to upload files. That's where you would be like, okay, when they type this word, have them, tell them to upload their about me. And so then they can come here, they can upload their about me, and then it would contextualize the rest of the conversation based on that about me doc. So those are two really nice best practices that I use a lot when I'm making them. But okay, so wrapping this up a little bit, we hear so much about using AI to save time, which is great. Like, obviously, who doesn't want more time? But really, what we want to do if we're looking for transformation, we want to look at scaling intelligence. Because if we can package intelligence and give it out to everybody instead of it just having it be in these random pockets, we are going to be able to escalate and really up level everybody. And that really is the benefit of working with a team, right? Like, that's why we don't work alone. That's why we work with teams. So that's really the goal here. We need to get away from saving time. Yes, this is great. great and this will organically happen. What we really want to be focusing on 2026 is how are we scaling intelligence within our organization? And the best part about this is you need humans to do this work. Like this is what makes people, I think, really see how hard a lot of this is that packaging this up, creating these systems, thinking about your workflows. None of it is easy. And I want to give you a really good example. And this, I think, Joelle, kind of goes a little bit back to yours about how do we, really get people more motivated, more invested, and things like that. Because everywhere I go, I'm over the last year and a half, for sure, I can tell you the number one thing I'm seeing for why people are not adopting AI, for why people are still talking about AI detectors, they still think it's cheating. They have a horrible understanding of what AI actually is and how to use it. And this article recently came out on NPR. And of course, anytime an article comes out that says a teacher dumped AI and went pen paper, it goes viral. So here's this teacher. No thing on her. Obviously, she's probably amazing. However, she talks about how she went to a conference, came back, used AI, thought it was awful because the kids weren't engaging, they were outsourcing their thinking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm never using AI again, and I'm going back to pen and paper. And what you realize in the article is has nothing to do with AI, but it has to do with the fact that basically she was doing an assignment on a literary analysis, and she wanted the kids to use AI to get support in doing their literary analysis. So she said, "Okay, use AI to do your literary analysis." Obviously, kids have no experience using AI, so they were just like, "How do I do blah blah blah?" And this is one of the reasons why I really, really, really have this philosophy about what we call prompting the human before the machine. Let's get super, super, super clear on what it is you actually want to do, and then let's go to your AI tool. So if you're not familiar with Spark, it basically is just share a little bit about your situation, who you are, what you do. This is why that about me is so important. What is the problem? Like, why did you want your kids to use AI in that way? Or what is it that you're trying to solve for? What is your aspiration? What does good look like? Again, all of these are written really in your about me. What results are you looking for? What is that outcome you're looking for that you want? And then the last one, this Kismet, this isn't for you to do. This is where you go to your AI tool and say, give me 3 to 4 ideas for how to do this because I'm not quite sure how. So if this teacher had taken a few minutes to do Spark, she might have come in and said something like this. I teach high school. My students just finished reading Still I Rise, and they struggle with their writing, right? Like they're not as confident with their writing. And my problem is I want them to write a literary analysis with a strong thesis, but when I have them use AI to support them, they just have AI write it for them, right? I want my students to develop their own argument and I want them to engage with the text. And I also want them to be more confident, right? So she doesn't want to get rid of AI completely, really. She does want to use it. She's just not sure how to do it without them outsourcing their thinking. I need my students to walk away with a thesis statement that is 100% their own, that has been challenged and questioned and strengthened with AI. Give me 3 to 4 ideas for what I can do because I have no idea how to do it myself. Come here, drop it into, Gemini. And just like that, you can see the prompt is just the same one that I read for you, but give me 3 to 4 ideas. And just like that, Gemini starts dropping ideas. Number one, I would literally just go with number one, do a debate. It's like instead of asking AI to agree with them or help them, have AI debate them, right? So it even gives her the workflow. Students write a messy first draft. And then here's the prompt you're going to give your students, right? These are the little things people are not doing, but then they're so quick to say AI is awful, the kids are cheating, and da da da. Well, it's like, okay, well, how did you support them in that process, right? So it gives her a prompt. I'm a high school student. This is what I'm writing. Here's my first draft. Act like a critical scholar and give me 3 counter arguments about this. Yeah, he would be. Um, um, uh, and then the result is that they have to go back to the text to find evidence to beat the AI. You can literally make this a gem. In fact, it recommends it after, like, do you want help making this a gem? But it has other ideas here as well, whatever, and then summarizes all the ideas and is like, what do you want to do moving forward? So the big thing with this is once you start teaching people these practices, which are so quick and so easy to do, they can be done in 30-minute sessions, 60-minute sessions. What happens is we move away from everybody kind of working on their own islands where they're trying to build all of their own AI tools. They're figuring out everything alone. They're working alone. Like we want to use AI to get rid of silos and start bringing people together again around this concept of shared intelligence. We could literally create a Spark Gem. Actually, you know what? We have one. I'll include it in the follow-up email that I sent you. You could give everyone a Spark Gem and then have them go out and do that. And so that's it. So that's our system that we really want to look to be able to create the knowledge, your about me, all those things, your skills. What are the things that you want people to be doing more of? And the more you distribute this out to your network of people, the more feedback you'll get that in turn improves your knowledge, adds to your knowledge base, adds to your skills base. And it's this really beautiful cycle of learning where people are really empowered to be partners with AI and really build these AI teams instead of just thinking of them as, machines that give them answers. So we will take a little bit of Q&A if you want to hang around a little bit at the end. We went a little bit longer than we thought we would, but we did also want to share that if you are interested in bringing this to your district, we did put together two courses that we have to share with you today to literally show you how this can be done in 60 minutes. The two courses are number one, the prompt reset. Basically, like you need to change your basics of how you use AI. A lot of people have this vending machine mentality and they really need to get back to the basics of prompting and really think about like context, their about me, and the foundational pieces they need to really get good results. And once you have this down, you're ready to get into the assessment piece. So we know these two things are a top priority for people, and literally it can be done in 60 minutes. Each of these courses is about 30 minutes each. And if you wanted to purchase this, we have it available for you for $99. You get lifetime access. I think this is like really huge. And one of the reasons we do it is AI changes so much. Um, You'll get the courses. We have a lot of custom templates, but one of the other things we've started doing is these weekly like 20-minute videos and challenges. So if you're like, oh, like how can I use this? What can I do? Like I want to try something new and you're just looking to just like stay up to date with skills. We do weekly office hours. We have little challenges. And then if you do join as part of this cohort from this webinar, we have a live workshop where we'll like kind of like build with you. But I think if you're somebody who like, is more like, well, what do I do about my organization? We have this option for your district as well. This is primarily what I've been doing for the past like year and a half is mostly giving people these two courses. And we are just seeing like phenomenal results with people going in and learning these strategies and really, building that AI system and sharing notebooks with each other and sharing gems with each other and really,
Oh,
like I said,
great.
that scaling intelligence across the board. And then again, getting lifetime access. And I'll tell you the one thing I really like about this approach for a district is I feel like a lot of people pay a lot of money for a 1 day workshop. You could literally pay that same amount of money for courses and start having people within your district teach other people. And I think
Train
people
the
will
trainer.
yeah, exactly. Train the trainer. And I think
Mhm.
people, your district better, your context better, and there's just a level of personalization that people bring. I think it's empowering for people inside their district as well to be able to do this. So if any of these two are of interest to you, let us know. I'll include these in the follow-up email as well. Katie, if you want to drop a link in there, you can. But you
Yep.
can just tell, like, we'll share these testimonials and stuff with you as well. But people really, really, really see a huge difference in their experience with AI, but also not just their experience with AI, but also what they believe about what students need as well. Because once you, as an adult, understand this information, now you're like, oh my God, this is why kids need to learn this too. And again, people just move away from seeing it as something that simply is used for cheating, and they see it as like, oh my God, wow, there's a whole other thought process that goes into this entire thing. So we're happy to hang around for a little bit and answer any questions that anybody has here. I think I got to most of them in chat. Um,
I think we
oh my,
missed a few at the top, but if
we
you have a
did?
burning
Okay.
question, please just type it in again, maybe copy paste. It got away from us there a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, the code, Jonathan, thanks for asking. It's system. So if you just go in there and put in system,
Oh, sorry. That's
it
my
will do
bad.
the code. But what are the questions? I thought I got all of them. Let me scroll
Let me
through them
do
really
that
quick.
again.
But you're more than welcome. Just put your hand up or anything and then see. I think we got all of them. Yeah.